With that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll now move on to the final session of today in the plenary hall. But let me tell you, tomorrow also we have, we start with a yoga session early at 9 o'clock, and then 11:30 a.m. India time is when we begin with the first session tomorrow. Now, let me begin by introducing you to the session theme, which is, I'm going to request you, ladies and gentlemen, to please pay attention. This is Special Plenary 1, which is titled Customer Rights Protection Order by Ministry of Power, Action by Utilities and Regulators. And with that, I'm going to now very quickly introduce our first speaker. And let me introduce our chair and moderator first, Mr. Ravi Sitapati, who is chair of ISGF Working Group on RE and Microgrid and chairman Biosirus Incorporated Canada. After over 35 years of a career in electric utilities and power systems, Mr. Sitapati is now an advisor to the utility industry and sits on the boards of Power Transmission and Distribution Division of Larsen & Toubro India, Biosirus Incorporated, and India Smart Grid Forum. And his current international activities include Ambassador for the Americas Global Smart Grid Forum, SIGRE convener, WGC X28 remote grids, and as you can see on the screen, quite a few there. And also he's an invited speaker internationally and has co-authored over 50 technical papers in the areas of smart grid. Warm welcome to you, Mr. Sitapati. I'd like to introduce our eminent speakers now. We have with us Mr. Neil Chatterjee, the member of Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, USA. He was nominated to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission by President Donald J. Trump in May 2017. And confirmed by the US Senate in August 2017. He served as chairman from August 2017 to December 2017 and was again named chairman on October 24, 2018. And he's been an energy policy advisor to the US Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell as well. Warm welcome to you, sir. I'd like to now go on to introducing our next speaker, Mr. Sutirth Bhattacharya. Mr. Sutirth Bhattacharya is the chairman of West Bengal Electricity Regulatory Commission, WBERC, and prior to that, he was chairman and managing director of Coal India Limited and chairman and managing director of the Singareni Collieries Company Limited. He was an IS officer from the Telangana cadre. He has vast and varied experience across different government sectors and positions. Warm welcome, sir. Let me now introduce to you to Mr. Anand Kumar, the chairman of Gujarat Electricity Regulatory Commission, and he took over as chairperson Gujarat Electricity Regulatory Commission on the 5th of April 2016. And before joining Gujarat state, he has served the state of Meghalaya as chairperson ERC and state of Uttarakhand as electricity regulator, and comes armed with more than 36 years of experience in the power sector. Warm welcome, sir. Let me introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to Mr. Sanjay Banga, president of Tata Power Delhi Distribution Limited, and a power sector veteran with 27 years of experience in power generation and distribution. Mr. Sanjay Kumar Banga has been with TPDDL since 2003. He brings with him extensive learning in generation and distribution operations, selection and deployment of automation technologies, and for strengthening of electricity utilities. Warm welcome, sir. Let me introduce you to Mr. Timothy Dean Self, who is the International Live Line Training and Safety Specialist at Alltech. He's the Vice President at Alltech. With over 30 years of experience in the power line industry, he worked his way up to the ranks from lineman to safety manager to executive director of training, and his highly sought after expertise in live line work has led him to train operators, write customized lineman training curriculars as well, and help utility companies create and implement a strong safety culture. I'd like to now, ladies and gentlemen, introduce you to Mr. Mohan Gupta, the Vice President and Regional Industry Lead, Utilities, APJ, SAP, Customer Focused Senior Professional. He is with 14 plus years of rich and diversified experience in utilities industry. In current role as Regional Industry Leader for Utilities and APJ, he's responsible for go-to-market, business development, demand generation, partner enablement, and adoption of SAP solutions across the region. Warm welcome to you, sir. Let me introduce you to the lady on the panel, Miss Anjali Chandra, member Punjab State Electricity Regulatory Commission, who brings to the table 4 decades of experience in the power sector. Her areas of expertise include distribution and transmission network planning, formulating standards, devising regulatory frameworks, and load forecasting. Prior to joining PSCRC, she was Principal Chief Engineer at the Central Electricity Authority. Warm welcome, ma'am. I'd like to introduce you to another lady on the panel, ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Katrina Barunica, who is Program Manager, Department of Energy, UNIDO. She's a Sustainable Urban Planning Associate at the Energy Department of the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. And in this position, she coordinates UNIDO's Sustainable Cities portfolio with a total value of over $150 million. Warm welcome, ma'am. Let me introduce you, ladies and gentlemen, to our final panelist, Dr. M.S. Kele, presently Chairman, Managing Director, Tripura State Electricity Corporation Limited, Agartala, and he will continue to work as Managing Director of Tripura State Electricity Corporation Limited. Warm welcome to you, Shri Kele. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I will now hand over the proceedings of this very, very eminent panel discussion. Esteemed panelists are going to be led by our moderator. So I'm going to request our moderator, Shri Ravi Sitapati, to kindly take over. Sir, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, and I guess an early good morning to some of you on the West Coast. I don't know if the secretary is there. Is the secretary on as yet? I don't see him, but perhaps he's delayed.
So we request you to chair this session and also moderate.
Okay. So with the permission of the secretary who's not here, I'm going to sort of become a kind of a government spokesman, if I may. It's a very important session here today, and that is because of the government announcement that took place in December, which probably was rolled out earlier this year, which is talking of certain electricity consumers' rights. A few of us in other parts of the world have already got bits of that in either in our legislation or in our regulation on consumers' rights and certain obligations that utility providers have towards the consumers. But I thought this was a little more interesting in the sense it is sort of mandated as opposed to the various regulatory commissions adopting it. And so there are 2 or 3 elements which I will propose because the rest have been already announced. One is the mandated use of smart meter for power quality. And the second is the automatic payment of compensation should the power quality waiver based on what the norms are set. I think that was something unique that caught my attention because normally in our regulatory systems, you go to the regulator or somebody takes you to the regulator for violation of power quality as opposed to certain automatic compensation. But with the use of smart meter, it is possible to automate this whole process. And it's interesting to hear from others what they think about this process. The second is ease of doing business in the Indian retailing sector, which has been a very tough nut to crack. The retailing sector, in fact, in the electricity business in many parts of the world, is still being debated. It's a success in some part like Europe. In other parts of North America, it has not been that big a success. And so there are mixed bag views on this as such. So I thought that was very interesting as well, that they have actually mandated it, that the utilities should make it, the ease of doing business in the retailing side. And we'll hear from the industry players as well. So with that and the introductions to have been made, I thought I've sent to all the panelists, we'll break it up into 2 segments. This being an India-related issue, I thought it'll be unfair to ask the foreigners to come and speak first. So what I'm going to do is we'll have a first segment of the Indian regulators speak on it, and then a comment by the immediate past chairman of FERC and now Commissioner Neil Chatterjee. I had the pleasure of meeting you last year in Delhi. And he will comment on his experiences, what he thinks, what he hears, and then if there are any points that we should carry forward with it by way of his observations. The second half of the segment, I will let the industry segment people, the utilities, industry, comment on their views on how they would react to this kind of a government announcement and potential regulatory changes, if any. And then I will ask Ms. Katerina Veronica from UNIDO to give a perspective of how she thinks. UNIDO does help whenever there are certain gaps required in many parts of the world. It does pitch in even with money. And so I would like her to provide some comments, after which we'll go to Q&A. If there is a Q&A, and we began a little late, I see that. But if there is an opportunity for Q&A, we'll do that. Otherwise, we'll have a simple discussion. I may ask a few questions of clarification. And then we'll hopefully try to wind up on time because it's late in the day for India. But nevertheless, it was a good entertainment show. I was reminded of some old songs. So it was a nice start to this. So with that, let me then begin and ask the first speaker is Mr. Bhattacharya, the chairman of West Bengal Electricity Regulatory Commission, to give his opening remarks. Is he there? I thought he was there.
So I think he's slightly delayed. He's going to join a little later. So we
Okay,
can go
so
on to
then
the
let's
next
move
one.
on. So then let's move on to the next speaker, which is Mr. Anand Kumar, Chairman of Gujarat Electricity Regulatory Commission. Is he there?
I'm afraid so we'll have to still go on to the next one. I'm so sorry about this.
Okay, okay. It's
We're
late in
lining
the
that up.
day, I understand, but that's fine. So the third speaker will be Miss Anjali Chandra, member of the Punjab Electricity Regulatory Commission. Miss Chandra, I know you are there, so hopefully you will lead the discussion.
Consumer rules notified in 2020 are mainly incorporated already in our supply code and performance standard regulations, except for a few provisions like application is to application for new connection is to be put on web portal and also to be available on mobile app, and your number in the registration, etc., is to be available. Then, the concept of all new connections shall be with prepayment or smart meter, that is not existing in our regulations. And further, that demand charges are to be notified up to 150 kilowatt. We notify demand charges on a flat rate up till 100 kVA, because from 100 kVA onwards, our connections are on HT. They are not on LT. And notifying demand charges up to on HT flat, on HT may be a bit difficult, but because the size of the distribution transformer is to be known first to the utility, there may be a consumer with 100, there may be a consumer with 125, there may be a consumer with 150. So that problem will come, but we are looking on to how we can do this. Then there is a provision for automatic compensation. Like you said, smart metering will, let us know what is the quality of service, not the quality of power. Quality of power is a different subject altogether. It relates to voltage available at the consumer premises, the harmonics injected by the consumer, the voltage harmonics injected by the utility. So the smart meter will not have all those features of quality of power monitoring. It can only let us know whether the power was off or the voltage was low or high, this type of compensation can be given. But there are various judgments of Supreme Court that both parties are to be heard before awarding compensation, because the power may be off due to the distribution license.
We are losing you, Miss Chandra.
Perhaps you could switch off your video if required.
Miss Chandra, if you're hearing, if you can switch off your video, I believe it helps. So I don't know. Today we seem to have started on a not a very strong note. So let's, in the interest of time, maybe if she comes back on, we'll accommodate her. She had an interesting point of view, which just got cut off, perhaps at the wrong moment there. So
She's
with that,
back, Ravi.
oh, she's back. Okay, good. Okay. Yes, please continue, Ms. Chandra. No, we still cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you in parts, but I think, yeah, please continue.
Yeah, just. Yeah, so we will have to. There's an interesting provision that consumers up to 10 kilowatt only should have net metering, and above that there will be gross metering. Now, if there is to be gross metering for consumers above 10 kilowatt, we will have to specify the feed-in tariff for the consumers at various, 10 to say 20 kilowatt, 20, because the cost varies with the size of the plant. So we will have to specify the new feed-in tariffs. Net metering will only be allowable up to 10 kilowatt. So that is a new dimension. Then, we have to establish CGRF at various levels. Today we have about 2 CGRF in Punjab. Now, if we are to establish them at subdivision, division, circle, zone, and company level, then we have to put in new regulations. Also, we have to appoint independent members at each level, and we will have to decide at till what monetary level, monetary limit this subdivision level will see, what monetary level the division level will see, and what who will be the appellate, or will any subdivision level will directly consumer will go to the ombudsman, or can he appeal to the company level? So all these regulations will have to be put in place by the regulator. So for implementing these right of consumer rules, there's a lot of responsibility which the regulator will have to take. And while doing so, there are many time frames in this, like time frame for new connection, time frame for changing meters, time frame for a lot of things which have to be decided by the commission. MoP has suggested some time frames, but we have to see the preparedness of the utility to adhere to those time frames. For example, every new connection will be with a smart meter or prepayment meter. Is the utility ready at this point of time? The Ministry of Power has only given us 2 months to notify or modify our supply code regulations and performance standards. But we have to see the preparedness of the utility to put this system in place. They do not have the ecosystem for the smart meter or prepaid meter already in place. So, we have to look into the timelines of implementation of each provision of the consumer rule. And for this, a lot of infrastructure changes will be required. All the operational planning, feasibility, and other things have to be IT, OT, and communication driven. Now, in private utilities, maybe they are at a very high level of automation, but in government and public utilities, they are at different levels of automation. I can say about Punjab that if we are to monitor automatic compensation, we have to put a lot of system in place to be able to avoid that automatic compensation. Similarly, we have to have GIS mapping. Some GIS mapping has been done under APDRP, but we will have to have GIS mapping, automated AM and FM facilities, consumer indexing, because without that, to be able to avoid automatic compensation will not be possible. Especially if it is delicensed as is being proposed, then whose consumer is it? Which transformer, which feeder was he connected to? So, that all has to be looked into. And of course, strategically also, the whole, looking at utility operations in a public utility, the governance itself has to change. Human resource development has to take place. It is the implementation. Notifying will not be a problem for the regulator, but getting it implemented at ground level in a big utility has to be monitored. Some roadmap has to be prepared, because it is people at the ground level who will be in direct touch with the consumer and will be giving the service to the consumer. It will be at the regional, the RA level, the JE level, the lineman level, the SDO level. So all these regulations have to percolate down. They have to be, the capacity building of these people has to be done, and the implementation has to be monitored. So there have to be systems in place to monitor all this. It is a very good move to give consumer his rights, but implementation will take some time, as I see it, and it cannot be done in the 2 months time frame given to us. It is all already ended, but we are still in the process of implementing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chandra, for very succinct issues that you bring up, both largely from the practicality side and some from the technology side. So there are several key points I've noted, and maybe it'll come up for questions or discussions as well. And so thank you very much for your input. Commissioner Chatterjee, I'm putting you in your spot. The two speakers before you still don't seem to have shown up. So I'm putting you in your spot for your reactions and your comments and observation, if any. Mr. Chatterjee.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for having me, for the kind introduction, and for hosting this panel, Ravi. Also, thank you to Reggie for inviting me to speak to you all today. I'm honored to be a part of this important conversation and to have the opportunity to share my views as a commissioner at the U.S. Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC. It's my utmost privilege from a professional and a personal perspective to be with you here for this event, albeit virtually. I look forward to engaging with my esteemed fellow panelists who have so much to offer in this conversation. Before I go any further, I do have to share a quick disclaimer that the views expressed here today are my own. They do not necessarily reflect the positions of my fellow FERC commissioners or FERC staff or the US government generally. We are in the midst of a truly significant moment in our collective energy history. Monumental shifts are occurring in the energy mix. New and innovative technologies are enabling more resources to compete, and policymakers here in the US and across the globe are pushing for cleaner fuels to power our grid. These changes are creating opportunities for all of us. It's an exciting but challenging time to be an energy policymaker, because all of these technological and policy changes create new questions about how to best ensure that we can deliver clean, reliable, and affordable power to homes and businesses. That's why it's so important to me to meet with our counterparts around the world to see how they have tackled these issues. And hopefully, through exchanges like this one today, we can learn from one another and take home best practices that benefit all energy consumers. Building on the theme of working together, I'd like to highlight some work that FERC has undertaken with the Government of India. One great example of collaboration is the Flexible Resources Initiative that includes FERC, India's Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, or CERC, the US State Department, and other agencies. For those of you who are not aware, the Flexible Resources Initiative mobilizes a whole-of-government approach to support India's economic growth by promoting key flexible resources like natural gas and battery storage to achieve India's ambitious renewable energy goals and vision for a gas-based economy. To that end, FERC is engaged at a deep level with CERC as they embark on efforts to reform the country's electricity markets. These efforts are really quite bold, and I believe will pay huge dividends going forward. I was pleased to represent FERC recently as we executed a memorandum of understanding with CERC to further facilitate these discussions. We continue to work hand in hand with CERC to share our experience with flexible resources and energy markets more broadly. We've had numerous exchanges on topics like day-ahead and real-time markets, ancillary services and oversight, and enforcement of energy markets, and look forward to more discussions in the coming year. As we design regulations to enable energy transitions, I believe it's helpful to keep in mind some universal energy values: reliability, affordability, energy security, transparency, and environmental protection. The reason I call these values universal is because they represent the considerations that my colleagues and I at the Commission and that energy regulators throughout the world, including in India, grapple with every day. Now, of course, given my own experience, I'll approach this discussion from a US perspective, but I think the fundamental challenges are equally relevant in India. I believe it's helpful to ask ourselves several questions about what we can do to enable this transition. These questions include: how can we leverage existing technologies and market forces to ensure reliable delivery of electricity to diverse consumers across a resilient electric grid? How can we enable and incent the deployment of emerging technologies that can improve national energy security? How can we accomplish these goals in an environmentally sensitive and cost-effective manner? And finally, how can we design transparent and stable regulatory ecosystems so that we can enable private sector investment to achieve these policy objectives? These are complex issues, no doubt. Fortunately, discussions like the one we are having today give us an opportunity to share perspectives and experiences which collectively help us craft more robust solutions. In the remainder of my remarks today, I want to share a little about the actions we've taken in the United States and specifically at FERC that will be central to our transition to the grid of the future. Backing up for a moment, I would like to give some context to FERC's role in today's discussion. We are the wholesale energy regulator in the United States. We have purview over the reliability of the bulk power system. We oversee wholesale electricity markets, including the regional grid operators known as RTOs and ISOs, and we approve the siting for hydro and natural gas infrastructure, among other things. We do not regulate the retail market or the distribution system or sales to end-use customers. That responsibility falls under the authority of each state public utility commission. As such, much of the smart grid investment and infrastructure built in the US is not within FERC's regulatory purview. However, as the retail and wholesale markets have become increasingly intertwined, actions that we take at the federal level can affect the distribution system and retail level consumers and vice versa. The discussion around a smarter grid necessarily involves coordination with our state partners to share ideas and benefit from each other's experiences. We all have a shared interest in allowing new technologies to compete and unlock greater benefits for the system. That's what we strive to do at FERC every day. In that vein, what I'd like to do now is take a closer look at FERC's efforts to level the playing field for new resources like storage and distributed energy resources, or DERs, so that we can realize their immense potential. As I touched on earlier, the dizzying pace of technological innovation we're seeing brings tremendous opportunity, but also thorny new challenges for energy policymakers. That litany of challenges is as lengthy as it is complex, but I'd like to speak to a few of them now. Technological advances have led to rapid growth of renewable energy resources within the United States. A mere generation ago, utility-scale wind and solar power was merely a dream. Now, renewable resources are so important to our energy mix that they determine energy market pricing during much of the day in large swaths of the United States. But as with the increase in natural gas generation, this greater emphasis on renewable generation comes with its own challenges. Lower energy prices can strain utility balance sheets and accelerate displacement of conventional generation. The intermittency of wind and solar generation makes grid planning and coordination all the more complex. And because renewables are often sited in remote locations, bringing renewable energy to markets requires the build out of expensive new transmission lines and network upgrades. Yet, it's clear the rapid pace of technological innovation and the new challenges it brings is not slowing anytime soon. For instance, innovative energy management techniques such as improved energy efficiency, demand response, and curtailment can improve grid reliability and save consumers money. But they can also contribute to flattening energy demand and in turn make needed investments in generation assets less attractive. Distributed renewable energy resources and microgrids can make portions of the grid more reliable, resilient, and cost-effective for consumers, but they can create equitable concerns if those benefits are not evenly distributed. Energy storage technologies are fast maturing. Their ability to provide a wide range of services makes it difficult to predict the long-term effect storage will have on consumers and energy markets. But as these technologies continue to improve, there's no doubt that energy storage will be transformative. And lastly, as we move toward a smarter grid, each energy generation and transportation asset becomes a cog in an Internet of Things. And while that will create numerous efficiencies, it can also create vulnerabilities due to computer-savvy bad actors in faraway locations. Some of these challenges are specific to the United States, but many of them are already or could soon become applicable to India as demand for energy and the availability of new technologies continue to grow. And of course, India faces challenges unique to its situation as well. Since coming to FERC, I've been focused on ensuring that our rules allow new technologies to participate and compete in our wholesale markets. FERC has undertaken a number of regulatory initiatives aimed at encouraging and managing these resources and the integration of new technologies. The results of those efforts could prove informative for the efforts of our counterparts at CERC and elsewhere in India. I'm very proud of our accomplishments in this area, particularly with orders 841 and 2222. At a high level, Order 841 requires all wholesale market operators to implement rules that allow storage assets to compete on a level playing field with other resources. And Order 2222 is similar, but it removes market barriers to DERs, giving these resources access to U.S. wholesale markets through the power of advanced technology. Order 841 grew out of a concern that storage technologies did not have adequate opportunity to compete in our wholesale markets. By its very nature, storage did not fit neatly into the participation models that RTOs had established. In particular, storage's energy-limited nature and ability to both charge and discharge made it more complex to incorporate into security-constrained economic dispatch. First, storage must be eligible to provide all the services that it is technically capable of providing. This includes energy, capacity, and ancillary services. Second, storage must be able to set the market price. And third, the market operator must account for the unique physical characteristics of storage through bidding parameters or other means. This could be addressed by monitoring parameters unique to electric storage, such as the resource's state of charge. In addition, Order 841 adopted a minimum threshold of 100 kW for storage to participate in the market. Importantly, this principles-based approach strikes a balance by providing a fair and economically efficient outcome while leaving the various regions significant discretion to craft a proposal that works for their members. Next, I'll talk about what perhaps is the most important order we issued under my chairmanship, our groundbreaking DER Order 2222. As the capabilities of DERs continue to improve and that costs continue to decline, the Commission was concerned that these distribution level resources, like storage assets, face barriers that limit their participation in organized wholesale electric markets. In order to address these issues, in September of last year, FERC issued 2222, which removes market barriers to DERs. Here, we're talking about smaller energy resources located at our homes, businesses, and communities. Think rooftop solar panels, even electric vehicles, Nest thermostats, or really advanced water heaters. In Order 2222, we found these smaller assets that individually fall below existing RTO minimum size thresholds should be able to join together through the power of technology and compete in our wholesale electric markets, just like the large power plant down the street. This rule will help us usher in the grid of the future and unleash the power of technology and clean energy. If we can unleash that power, the power of these resources, that may shift the type of transmission investments we may need as DERs bring flexibility and reliability to the grid. A great real-life example that I often bring up when speaking about this issue is electric vehicles. Some estimate there will be almost 19 million electric vehicles on the road in the US by the end of this decade, and that's on the low end. In the future, when all those vehicles are plugged in, they'll be able to virtually work in concert as one large battery, providing grid-level services and compete with the power plant down the street. It's really quite extraordinary. We took great care to draft Order 2222 so that it's technology neutral, meaning as new technologies and capabilities emerge, new market participants can emerge and our market will be ready to accommodate them. We've also done a lot of work beyond energy storage and DERs to facilitate new technology and the changing resource mix. For example, we issued a proposed rulemaking in November aimed at improving the accuracy of our transmission line ratings, which are often overly conservative and can prevent us from utilizing of our transmission system. We've also held workshops and technical conferences on hybrid resources, offshore wind, and grid enhancing technologies. Each of these proceedings relate to different regulatory challenges, but they have common themes. We have to look down the road and be sure our regulatory structures can accommodate what's next. For example, we're seeing increasing interest and investment in hybrid resources, meaning storage paired with a traditional generation resource. But we've also identified some unique challenges facing hybrid resources when it comes to navigating our interconnection processes and participating in our wholesale markets. So we've initiated a process to examine these issues and explore potential reforms. The same is true for offshore wind transmission and interconnection issues and grid enhancing technologies. We've engaged with stakeholders to explore how we can break down regulatory barriers in these areas. I look forward to hearing more from stakeholders about these issues and to working with my colleagues on next steps. I'm hopeful that all of this work will have a great impact on increasing the resilience and reliability of the grid while fostering competition and innovation. It's true that the United States and India each face challenges enabling the energy transition and advancing the universal values identified at the beginning of my remarks. But we don't face these challenges alone. Our nations are strategic partners invested in one another's success in modernizing our energy sectors for the 21st century. We have a shared energy destiny, and we're growing closer every day. It has been my privilege to be with you here today, and I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Chatterjee. Several points noted. I think you have brought on the new technology aspect as well into the mix. I'm reminded almost a quarter century ago about the wide consultation process when FERC 888 was rolled out to open the access from the transmission and the bulk electric system. So I think through your connection with CERC, that similar conversation now needs to happen at the retail side, should this government order likely to be initiated in a very broad spectrum. So thank you very much for your observation. I see Mr. Anand Kumar from Gujarat Regulatory Energy Commission is here. If Mr. Anand Kumar would like to go on next.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Satpathy, and thank you, Mr. Reggie Pillai, I am sorry that I am late, because I have promised you to join you because of the fact that today we have a very high-level meeting with the regulatory body and the government of India with their honorable minister. So your agenda for the today is, consumers' rights rules, which has been recently published by the government of India, I think in 2020 December, and now it has become a law in the land. And as far as my area is concerned, Gujarat Commission, I want to, use your forum to personally thank that when the 1998 Act came into India with the power sector reforms bill, and then they have notified Electricity Act. The main, focus of the bill was to address the consumer's interest, and that that was the biggest, area which was neglected before that, because during the time when the state electricity boards were running, the whole power was lying with the bureaucratic control. And that, with the establishment of the regulatory commission, the consumer-centric ideas have generated. Now with this new bill, which we will see maybe in few more time, that Electricity Act Amendment Bill, with this, the consumer rights rules, the both are now coming to more towards the consumer's interest. Now, as far as the regulatory commissions are concerned, I feel that this is my personal feeling that we have to modify our existing regulations, because now some of the provision which are very interesting and to address the consumers areas like billing, metering, or you can say consumer grievance handling in India. I think all the regulators have to see that the new regulation should come into the place, so there should not be any confusion in the market. So framework or regulation, most of the I think audience, maybe some of the outside the country, they should know that the regulatory framework where the regulations are made, it requires deep consultation process. As I said earlier, that in India, in the the process is a little lengthy process, because we have to consult the public by inviting objections or giving the draft regulation into the public domain, and then we invite suggestions from them, and then we decide whatever suggestions comes to us, then we decide the actual regulations. So with the rights of consumer rules and the Electricity Act amendment, a massive consultation is now required. First amongst the distribution company and regulator, and then distribution companies, regulator, and consumers, because consumers is also a biggest stakeholder in the process. Now, since we follow a consultative federalism approach, enough time and energy should be spared for this process for the success of the concept of the introduction of the competition in the distribution sector. We have already seen the result of the competition in the telecom sector. Now we are also, thinking of this should come into the electricity market, and the consumer should now given a choice to select their supplier, as well as their rights are also being, more, streamlined. The right of consumers rule are so broad and deep that they touch each and every aspect of regulating the sector. Regulators need to revisit regulations. Mainly there are supply code, distribution code, consumer grievance redressal forum, standard of performance, net metering regulations, open access regulations, and even the tariff regulations. So, the transition time is now come that the biggest challenge for the Regulatory Commission is to make their regulation in line with the government policy or the dream the government of India has, seen that this type of, situation should come into our country like developed countries. So we think that the forum of regulator should also consider framing a model draft regulation, which will be helpful for other states, so that new regulations should come in early stages. Now, I would like to touch upon some of the aspects like standard of performance regulations, where, like, I will, for example, I have considered this, what type of changes we require in our regulation. If you see that timelines for release of new connections, disconnections, reconnections, and shifting, this need to incorporated in the supply code or standard of performance regulation. So, and then information dissemination is also very important aspect of the new right of regulations. Compensation for delay in connections, adoption of online platform for issuing connection, implementation of application tracking mechanism, cost of new connections, documents required for a new connection, start prepaid, smart meters or prepaid metering for new connection, periodicity and mode of meter reading, consumption monitoring, provision for self meter reading, testing of meter and time limit, timelines, and compensation for replacement of defective meters, then notification for tariff changes, and timelines of bill delivery, promotion of online payment of bills, multiple avenues for bill payment, applicability of advance payment of bills, access to consumption details, generation of provisional bills, generation of first bill. So there are so many area where our new regulations should come into shape. As far as the existing regulations for like supply code in India, there are some states who have developed a robust system in their state. But yes, some states are there where some work has to be done now. So what I feel that the job of the regulator is becoming very, very challenging in the coming days to deal with the new regulations or new rules set up by Ministry of Power. But I feel that Regulatory Commission in India are now becoming more professional, and I am sure that they will they will change their existing provision of regulations with the new set of regulation. And I wish all of our regulator team a great success ahead. And with this, I want to thanks ISGF and their organizers to give me a chance to come to you. With this, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. Thank you for your articulation in addition to what Ms. Chandra outlined in Punjab. So it's interesting to compare two different, networks, two different streams, two different progress in its network, and yet the problems to some extent remain the same. So it was good to hear your views. We'll come back during the Q&A to some of the points that you mentioned. Now I'd like to move to the second sub-theme, which is the industry theme, where we have two utilities and then two industry participation, and then with UNIDO providing their observations. So I'm going to ask Mr. Sanjay Banga to open up the first part of this subject.
Thanks, Ravi. Thanks, Reggie, for inviting me on this platform and providing an opportunity to share my thoughts on this subject. I have gone through this consumer right, which is published by Ministry of Power, and I really welcome this move. It made the entire process of getting connection very, very easy. A person has to just produce 2 documents and he can get connection. And if he doesn't get connection, then he will get money, because there are guidelines have been set, or the timeline has been set, that if someone is in an urban area, then within 7 days, and the rural area, another guideline is there. So all has been done keeping customer at center, because the way customer was treated in distribution sector is not fair, and it was more so because the sector has been a monopolistic sector. Whether it's a private player or it's a government player, and the lack of competition was creating that problem. We serve Mumbai, we serve Delhi, we serve Ajmer, and now we are serving Odisha also. Both in Mumbai and Delhi, we use technologies, and we use technologies, and in fact providing customer convenience much more than what has been specified in this law. So, for example, we provide instant connection in both in Delhi and Mumbai. and how we provided that when a person apply on online connection, our technical person goes there, he takes money and he knows that if the connection is feasible, and then he immediately call a meter management group that please go and install, and the meter is installed on the same day. Loading of transformer is available by using meters on transformer. Consumer is connected on GIS, and so an integrated platform. There is absolutely no issue when a DT gets overloaded or distribution transformer get overloaded 70%. We replace it and making sure that when a new consumer comes, we give him connection immediately. In fact, to an extent, we have in our system a seasonal variation because we know that in summer, in winter, the transformers are not that much loaded. So even if a bigger amount connection comes of 20, 40, 50 kilowatt and a 250 kilowatt transformer, we still provide him connection knowing very well that before summer, we will change this transformer. So using very, very extensively technologies for providing customer convenience. But I am so happy that this system of bringing customer on center. Discoms, I feel, will have to change the way they are working. And as I saw Anjali ma'am also saying same thing, the technology has to be more and more in front end. It has to be deployed to make sure the transparency remains the system, that each a new connection application or the billing part is monitored online, and that has been in fact made very clear in law also. That without use of technologies, you actually cannot implement this law as such. So I expect most of the discoms to now bring more and more technologies and more strict monitoring mechanism in place. It also will ensure the other systems of other piece of technologies like ERP, because the inventory system has to be there and material has to be available at time when new connection comes. So it's not only the customer-centric billing application or those will be there, but the whole lot of operation and IT technologies will be there in new discoms, and different kind of monitoring mechanisms would be there. I also welcome step of prepaid smart metering and prepaid metering. It will have financial implication. I'm not sure how feasible it is to install smart prepayments in rural areas, but definitely prepayment meters can be installed. I always have this opinion that it's a very risky proposition, because once you install prepayment meter, you stop visiting customer premises, and that leads to leakage of electricity. So unless on the back end you have a very strong analytical teams in place who is monitoring how one is charging his meter at what rate, you will not find much improvement in AT&C losses. So a different kind of mechanism of monitoring entire system would be required, and I'm happy with this. Will make discoms more agile and will bring more technologies to ensure that they follow what has been declared now. So those are my views, Ravi. Thank you.
Thank you, Sanjay. Very important notes on the technology side. I also read your piece recently on LinkedIn. So you seem to bring that very forward-looking, let's go ahead, do it, it's possible approach. The one on the meter you talked about, in fact, we in our billing system, if any meter goes to zero, it raises a flag. Whether it's a technology failure flag or a consumer flag, it raises a flag in our system. So we pick that up in our computerized billing systems. So let me now move to Tripura. So I see Mr. Kele is there. So Mr. Kele, the floor is yours.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Raviji. And I want to have a share presentations.
Yeah, please, if you want to load it up. Anand, if you're there, you can help him.
Can you see my presentation?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Basically, I will start my presentation with some brief about the Act. I will emphasize on the Act because the Act has given the mandate for the consolidation of the laws relating to generation, transmission, distribution, power trading. There are various stakeholders, just like union government, as it is electricity comes in concurrent list, union governments, state governments are the major stakeholders, and these policies are implemented through.
Sorry to interrupt you, sir. Shri Kele, may I request you to make the presentation full screen in the
Okay.
Uh,
Just
Projection mode or the slideshow.
now it's okay.
Yes, sir. That's fine. Is that fine?
Can you see it clearly now?
Yeah, we can see it. I think, yeah, please,
Okay.
we can see it.
Okay. These are some mandates in which various stakeholders plays their individual role for the development of the electricity industry, promoting competition and the protecting the interest of the consumers and rationalization of the electricity and constitution of the central as well as the state electricity regulatory authorities. These are some mandates which are implemented through the various stakeholders. And apart from union, state governments and regulators, major stakeholders are state utilities, consumers, and the employees of the any utility. These are some key highlights of the electricity right of consumers rules which are being implemented now. And these are some 8 parameters which are discussed in that regulations. And one of them is new service connections. In new service connections, there are so many parameters which need to be implemented. There will not be any fees for the application form. Then there will be only 2 documents which needs to be given by the consumer. Applicant will not be, they will have an option of the online as well as the offline. Then application tracking system will be there. Maximum time period is decided for the metros, the cities, and for the rural area. These are some insights of that new service connections. Such type of parameters which are discussed in that metering. Metering will be smart or the prepaid metering for the new connections. Releasing of the connections will be through prepaid or the smart prepaid metering only. Then billing, online payment of the bills, all avenues should be available to the consumers. Then applicability of the advance of the bills and more than 1,000 rupees that bill should be paid through the online. Then there are provisions for the reliability and quality of the power supply for the 24/7 power to the consumers. Then consumer grievances redressal system should be strong and it should be implemented through the CGRF as well as the ombudsman. Then consumers as a prosumers, it will be applicable for the solar rooftop photovoltaic cells consumers. And it is the new compensation mechanism. It should be online compensation or the automatic compensation mechanism should be developed for the violation of any SOP by the utilities, and it will be incentivized or disincentivized to the utility. Actually, here majority regulators have spoken already. They have cleared their views. And basically, regulators' role is to frame the regulations. Tripura is a very small state, which is the 3rd smallest state in India, which is having small consumer base. And here there was some issues also. We are facing some peculiar issues. Actually, there was no regulator for so many years, and that's why actually no tariff was decided for 5 to 6 years since 2014. So now tariff has been decided, but it is not with any hike. It has decided with the rebate of 5 to 15%. It is not cost plus tariff, but it is there. Then appointment of ombudsman. Recently, TARC has framed regulations for that, and it is just published 24th February 2020. Recently, they have also published power quality regulations, in which actually CA and Forum of Regulators has prepared that regulations, but it is quite difficult to implement such type of regulations in the utility, any utilities, especially in the utilities in the northeast states, because they have very much stringent provisions are there. And we are implementing ease of doing business also at government level for the processing the connections and all other services. Because best service should be given to the better consumers, and better services should be given to the good consumer, because wherever consumer pays, then we should give, it is our duty to pay to serve the consumers. Presently, we are having a 3-tier system for the redressal of the consumer grievances. In field level, at the division level, DGM is looking to that. Whenever any consumers raise their voice for any complaint, it will be heard at the DGM level. Thereafter, if it is not satisfied, then he can approach to the AGM level or the circle level. And thereafter, if it is not resolved there, the consumers can approach to the corporate office also. And recently, they have CRC has framed regulations, and just like consumer grievances redressal system with the forum, the chairman, technical member, and independent member will have to be appointed by the licensing and commissions. These are some provisions in the Tripura Electricity Regulatory Commission Power Quality Regulations. In first year, it is just monitoring and reporting of the power quality parameters by the distribution licensee. There will not be no incentive or the disincentive or the penalty to the consumers. But from next year, it will be implemented along with some incentive as well as the disincentive for the distribution licensee and designated consumers. Designated consumers will be decided on the basis of the harmonics or the less quality parameters, which will be pumped by the designated consumer in the system. There are various provisions. If we see the voltage variation or the voltage unbalance, flickering, then voltage dips, harmonics, current harmonics, then low voltage, high voltage, these are some parameters, and only compensation will be payable by the distribution licensee. It is really problematic to the distribution licensee. Only one provision is there wherever the designated consumers will be penalized. So my suggestion is that any regulator, wherever framing the regulations, it should be practical, or which should be implementable by the concerned licensees. These are some role of utilities while implementing the these type of consumers' rights protection order. We are already prepared for that, because when I was working in Maharashtra, actually Maharashtra has done such type of regulation. MARC has prepared that regulation, which are being implemented in the MSCDCL. Majority services are under such type of compensatory use. Here, reliability and quality of the power supply, it is the first parameter which needs to be improved. So we are now implementing the projects which are related with the modernization and renovation of the system. We are not implementing the only infrastructure development. Apart from that, we are using the cover conductor, because here in Tripura, 60% area is covered with the dense forest. And that's why we are using the cover conductor for the 33 as well as 11 kV lines, along with fixation of the auto reclosers, sectionalizers, and fault passage indicators. It will definitely improve the reliability of the power supply. And we will also reduce the HVDS, implementing the HVDS for reduction of the HTLT ratio. Then we are already using the smart or the AMI system in the Agartala city. And we have also installed 1.84 lakh prepaid meters in the rural area. And our plan is to implement or the fix smart meters in the all urban or the district headquarters, and the remaining part will be covered with the standalone prepaid meter system. It is very successful in the Tripura as well as the Manipur, which are both the states are from the northeast area. And billing and payment system, all online platforms are already available with our system. And internal grievances redressal system is also in place. But we are after implementation of the regulations, we are also establishing the consumer grievances redressal system very soon. Then we have already started 24/7 smart customer care call center, which is useful for the total consumers in the state, as well as we have also started the fault restoration or the fault rectification team in the Agartala city, and which will be implemented in the phases through to the district headquarter level. Then compensation mechanism needs to be developed. We are going to implement such type of system through the IT-based system. Thereafter, some challenges which are faced by the utility are being a small state. There are issues of the funding also, and it is being surrounded by the 80% international boundary of the Bangladesh. It is a very strategic location, and geographically it's a hilly terrain with 60% dense forest. Then stormy weather is there. The rainy season is it about 6 months. So majority issues for the maintaining the lines is also a major issue. Then breakdowns and interruptions are definitely there. And here there is a delay in the project execution also due to various reasons, like local agencies are not available. Then transportation is this because majority material comes from the Kolkata or the other parts of the India. So it is also one of the reason. Exposure is not for the employees. That's why lack of professionalism is there, and unawareness in the consumers is also there. But we have taken various steps to improve the overall performance of the utilities by insertion of the smart meters, prepaid meters, and we also plan to implement prepaid and smart meters through the ADB funding project. And we also started the input-based power distribution franchise in the loss-making area, which are there are 20% consumers are covered through the franchisee. And we are also implementing modernization, automation through the ADB as well as the World Bank. Online payment is there. ERP is also in the process. Such type of measures we are taking for the preparation, and definitely we intend to give the better services to the consumers through various provisions which are being implemented through that the consumers' rights of the protection rules. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. A couple of takeaways from your talk. Is the notion of the geographical terrain, the difficulty associated with it, the fact that you're perhaps more rural rather than urban in your territory, and also the note you brought, I think, about the incentive balance perhaps needs to be tweaked as opposed to making it all one-sided. In fact, there was a study that ISGF did for the SAARC nations, the 8 SAARC countries, and I was a part of that, so Reggie could help you with that, where some of the thoughts that experience of Bhutan, when line conductor faults or conductor issues, could probably mirror the issues that you are talking about because of the dense forest and the hilly area, the terrains and so on, where it would take sometimes even a day or more just to go locate a fault when a retail line comes down into the forest or on the hilly terrain. So good points too, and very contrasting points relative to advanced technology, urbanized utilities versus the challenges of a utility that is sort of challenged by its own domain constraints. So with that, now I then move on to the 2 industry speakers. And I'm going to start off there with Mr. Mohan Gupta of SAP, and I believe he also has a presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Ravi. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, Mr. Kelly, if you can unshare your screen, then I will be able to share mine. Technical team, can you help unshare Mr. Kelly's screen? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Ravi. So first of all, thank you, ISGF, Mr. Reggie, Ravi, for giving this opportunity to be here amongst esteemed panelists. The challenge of going almost after 7-8 speakers and such esteemed speakers is most of what you want to say is already been said. But I will try to present a different perspective, coming from a technology company. What is my take on these new consumer protection orders and how utilities should transform and comply with these orders? Yeah. So first of all, I think this order is very timely. Externally, our customers also are already expecting great services from utilities companies. They want digital channels, they want personalized information and so on. So this is something which is already expected in the market. And if you look at other regions, geographies where deregulation, retail competition has already been introduced, these kinds of services and KPIs are a given. And we are at the influx in India. Soon we will also have competition in the retail market. So it is high time that utilities start looking at these sort of SLAs and performance parameters as part of their transformation journey to be relevant in the future. So just to give an example, this is a global study where it has already been identified that 90% of our consumers are already looking for a very personalized experience. They don't want to have generic marketing calls. They want to have information and products and services offered based on their context, and they already expect utilities to have this information. Similarly, if I look at the revenue side, with the installation of smart meters and prepaid meters, and also with the evolution of distributed energy resources coming into play, utilities are having a lot of issues in maintaining the revenue stream. So forget about increasing the revenue, even maintenance of the revenue is a big challenge. Margins are shrinking, and other players are coming to the ecosystem, which are impacting the utilities. So they have to look beyond just billing the commodity services. And in this regulation, there's a provision and mandate for utilities to install smart prepayment meters for new connections, which means that utilities have to look beyond just billing and selling electricity or gas or water. They have to leverage these smart metering technologies to introduce new services and new revenue streams for their consumers and maintain their minimum revenue base, and grow. So so this is one area where there's a lot of transformation, business process change which is required. And similarly, on the regulation side, I think it's very good that now consumers have the rights to get 24/7 supply, and utilities will get penalized, which means that utilities have to be asset driven. They have to improve their infrastructure. They have to digitize their assets, and also they have to optimize the operations to reduce cost to serve, for these assets. So what does it mean for utilities companies? So of course, as I said, investment in infrastructure, modernizing the assets, transformers, feeders, etc., making the grid intelligent with the introduction of smart grid technologies. And of course, the central pillar of this whole value chain is the customer, and utilities have to provide, very digital omni-channel customer experience where there's no paper trail. Everything has to be online, be it payments, new connections, which requires a complete transformation in the IT landscape for the utilities, to provide these kinds of real-time services where transparency, monitoring, tracking, and personalized offerings and experience to customer is given. Similarly, we are seeing a lot of growth in distributed energy resources. So net metering, gross metering is part of this new amendment, which means that utilities have to make their infrastructure very flexible to take into account the variability of these renewable energy resources getting into the grid. And this will also mean that they have to offer new services to the end consumer. The other key aspect is that there's a lot of learning from other industries that utilities can apply. Just look at the example of telecom. Telecom industry has gone through this deregulation, and there's a lot of competition now. So similarly, once this happens for utilities industry, they have to address these competition and other industry players who will come and try to take the market. So they have to be ready, these utilities. And of course, regulatory disruptions, it's going to keep happening every quarter, every half a year. There will be new regulations, which means utilities have to be flexible, resilient, and agile to implement these regulations. So what does it mean from technology point of view? What kind of capabilities a utilities company requires? So for customer engagement, just to give an example, omni-channel experience where the customer connects with utility through IVR or SMS or email, utility should have the complete context. Again, virtual agents, so they want 24/7, anywhere, everywhere availability, and the consumers wants the questions, concerns to be addressed, irrespective of what time, what day in the year. So because virtual agents, artificial intelligence is going to be the key here. Similarly, on the assets and operations side, there are a lot of technology enablers which are already available in the market, and it's just a case of adoption for the utilities. So be it analytics and intelligence, which is another key aspect. Mr. Sanjay Banga talked about, prepaid meters having a negative impact because there's no physical site visit required anymore, and there's a risk of revenue leakage, which means you need to have very robust remote monitoring and analytic systems that can pick up these kinds of revenue leakages and meter tampering situations without physically visiting the premises. Similarly, IoT is another area where utilities have to digitize their assets to maintain cost effectively. And GIS mapping, Miss Anjali talked about the need for mapping the consumer meters with the feeders, because with the kind of automatic compensation processes that need to be taken care of, GIS is a must. So these are the kind of technology enablers which already exist. It's just a case of getting them implemented and having the right platform. So from SAP point of view, the way we look at this whole technology infrastructure and its impact for the future utilities is, so they definitely require a sort of a technology stack, which is going to be the backbone of all the applications that utilities requires to run the end-to-end processes. So from our point of view, we call it as business technology platform, which provides technologies like IoT, RPA, artificial intelligence, and so on. And then with this backbone, of course, utilities need intelligent applications which take care of the standard processes, be it procurement, supply chain, and consumer billing, and so on. But these in the future, I believe, will get more and more standardized. So what will be the differentiating factor for a leading utility will be how they develop their own vertical edge solutions. And that is where we have this concept of industry cloud solutions. So where utilities can innovate and co-develop with our partners, with SAP and other technology companies on top of business technology platform. They can develop their own vertical edge solutions, which will be the key differentiators for the utility company. And then, of course, the topmost layer is the business network. So in today's world, for any utility to be agile and flexible, they also need to have very transparent and integrated processes across the vendors and the suppliers and partners. So that is where this business networks application layer comes into play. So be it asset information, be it logistics, and so on, they need to have end-to-end visibility across multiple partners and suppliers in the ecosystem. So just last slide. So from this, so that was a high-level view. So from utilities point of view, what it means is we have this technology stack, business technology platform, and we have the right solutions. Just as an example, our SAP S/4HANA utility solution, which takes care of device management, metering, customer management, GIS, project and portfolio management. So these are some of the key modules which are provided as part of one integrated stack on BTP. And then we have, as I said, the innovative vertical edge solutions that could be co-developed or procured as software as a service from SAP and our partners to really innovate for the future. Yeah. Sorry. Similarly, customer experience is another area where there are a lot of single stack integrated solutions available as software as service for utilities to implement. And the other key aspect is experience management. So utilities also need to invest in their employees, in the people, because they are the ones who will be engaging with consumers on the ground, and they need to be aware of all the new regulations and new policies and SLAs that need to be implemented. And also they need to have the right tools to serve the consumers. So enablement of employees and taking their feedback, taking their on the ground experience and adapting the processes is also one of the key topics that need to be addressed by utilities. So, so of course, SAP has been helping utilities across the globe. We have more than 4,000 utilities running SAP, and we have more than 510 utilities running our SAP S/4HANA system. And it is across the value chain. So be it power generation companies, be it integrated utilities, water utilities, etc. So we have presence across the value chain. And of course, with hundreds of partners who help our customers implement these technologies. And of course, from Indian power sector perspective, we have more than 50 plus public utilities on SAP, and we are generating more than 70 million electricity bills every month from SAP systems in India. And this is my last slide. There's a quote from one of the analysts' blog, which says, "As with dinosaurs, what will kill you is not a bigger dinosaur, but the meteorites that you didn't even know were coming your way." I think this is true for all of us, be it a technology company in utilities world or a utilities company. To stay relevant in the future, to adapt and implement and comply with these new laws, we have to be very, very flexible, and we are living in unprecedented times, and only the best, the fittest will survive. And time is now for all of us to get on this digital transformation journey and be relevant in the future. So with that, thanks a lot, Mr. Ravi and Mr. Reggie, for giving me this opportunity, and I'm happy to take questions now or after other panelists have also addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gupta. I think we'll take questions in the end. I think two takeaways from your one is the connectivity issue and the backend systems that you talk about. Perhaps a point to note also is, as the IT side and the cloud services become a bigger part share of this chain of what we call as incentive, disincentives, or automatic compensation, the question is, how will you share in the incentive, disincentive? Should the utilities be penalized for it through the regulatory process? It is coming up time and time again, in fact, in North America, because more and more value is now moving to cloud-based services, third-party services, shared services. So in my own utility, even 10 years ago, we used to do Section 5800 audit in every one of our IT companies, just to ensure that the services were as reliable, and we could stand in front of a court or in front of a legal system to say that we are all doing this together. So something just for you to think about. It may not be there in India yet, but it will come, because that's where the value chain is moving. The last speaker here is going to be Timothy Dean Self. He comes closer to where I have worked. And then in the field and transmission, in the field and distribution, I often used to tell my other counterparts that because the revenue is fixed by the regulator, the entire profit is actually determined by the operations. And I used to threaten literally all my other people, saying, you know what, we are your profit generators and not you guys. So it sort of reminds me of that background of how liveline maintenance, everything came, and then when we introduced it about 15, 18 years ago. So with that, let me turn it over to Timothy. Timothy, the floor is yours. You're muted.
Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I'm enjoying going last because I've learned a lot in listening to everybody and the perspectives of the issues and problems at hand. I come at this from a very operational position. I've served at entry-level positions all the way up to resource managers and training manager. I focus now mostly on training and consulting in the operation level, and with Altec on the live line training at the distribution and transmission level. You know, a lot of all the technology and everything that you're discussing and the regulations that are coming to you, I was on board and at various levels with companies that we went through this same issue. I was with Progress Energy in Florida when we had to respond to SAIDI 80. We had to have our SAIDI below 80 minutes. If it was not below 80 minutes by a certain deadline, we were going to have to refund our customers. We looked at our power quality and our loss, and we tried to regain that through not just our smart meters, but through our power factor on our system and recovery of loss through theft. All of this comes together. You know, we can put in all kinds of technology. We can have a great outage management system. We can have smart grid, but you've got to have somebody who can install it. You've got to have people who can respond to it. And having a highly mobile, trained, knowledgeable workforce, we have found to reach these goals that we're trying to reach, we've got to push that decision-making capability down farther to the field. And as you do that, you have to invest in your employees to bring your employees up to a level of professionalism to handle those decisions and be forward-facing to the customer. But as I listened to everybody talking, the commissioner had some very excellent points. And as we come in, we deal with vegetation management, you know, coverage by our employees, seasonal coverage changes due to weather. Florida, we had storm season, and we'd have to modify our coverage in storm season to have guys there on the job, ready to respond to outage management in a quicker fashion. Putting in the SCADA systems, having the intelligent switching, all that requires technically trained individuals who understand it, fuse coordination, system protection and monitoring. We get to critical customers, as we were talking about before. I can remember working in Southern Texas and down in Louisiana where the fossil fuel refineries, they had an arrangement with the power company that if they were out longer than 5 minutes, it was $5,000 every 5 minutes thereafter. And a penalty. So we would have multiple feeds, dedicated feeds just to them, would switch over gears to be able to make sure that we kept them energized in various scenarios. We brought in all the smart metering. As you're talking about the mapping, a couple people spoke about the mapping, and the other gentleman spoke of being in a rural area. We brought in instead of having one-line books for the linemen and the supervisors to have to use, we had the one line on a computer in their truck that was overlaid with Google Earth. So the technician is able to actually see not just a red line, but he can see everything that's around him. And the time that cuts down in getting the right people to the right spot was amazing. But the overall transfer of knowledge, proper selection of employees to be trained, training your employees, picking your trainers and training your trainers so that you can self-teach. All of these things are so important in this time frame. And then to move to energized distribution liveline work and to have the equipment to be able to do that. I know that manpower is not a major issue in India, but to be able to have the quality within your manpower and to diversify and bring down the labor hours per job because of the equipment and the training that they have. I can have 3 people do the same job that I would have had 8 done previously. So I'm not saying get rid of those other 5 gentlemen. I'm saying you can then put them on other situations and be more responsive to your customer. These are the things that brings your SAIDI down in distribution, improves your power quality. Having the technicians that are knowledgeable and understand this process with you, and that takes training, that takes quality equipment to tie in with all our technology. The technology into the trucks has been an amazing thing for us in the States. Going to a paperless job system to where the guys don't have to get sheets and all these papers to have to sign and fill out and complete and turn in. It's all done on the laptop in the truck, the mapping to be able to get to the jobs. I think Altech is here to help India however we can in consulting operationally, how to get this actually done as far as bringing the liveline training and liveline work in the distribution level to India. Not just come teach a couple guys and then leave, but be able to train some trainers and help you set up a quality system. Rollout is so important in the electrical utility industry with our employees to be successful. We can provide the training to the trainers. We can consult the operations managers and people in place for structure and coverage. We can provide equipment, of course. We can provide tools. Since I've been working internationally and traveling all around the world, whether it's in the Caribbean or out to Hawaii and the US, you know, I've seen some of these. The commissioner spoke about storage, and that's always been a huge problem. Batteries just aren't the only answer. I know where I'm at here in Tennessee, they went up on top of a mountain, plateaued it, opened up a massive reservoir, and while they have some clean energy during the day, they utilize that excess clean energy to pump water from the river up to the reservoir, so that then during peak demand hours, when we don't have the clean energy to be using, we can take that water, let it run back down, and generate the power we need during those peak times. There's a lot of solutions out there, and the technology is changing constantly. And you don't need just labor, you need true craftsmen, true skilled craftsmen working in connection with a good engineering and management team helps you to implement the technology that is out there and provide the services you need to your customer to give you both safety, production, and reliability. That's all I have right now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
To round off the second section, which was the industry focused segment, I would ask now Katerina Barunica from UNIDO to provide her observations and any other attributes you want to bring in. I don't see her here now. Is she still there? Anand, is she there? I don't see her. So Katerina, are you there? Okay, I guess yeah, hello? Okay, I don't see her, so we need to move along. I think it's getting late in the day in India, so I'm seeing that we're also losing strength here. So I think I'm going to open it up to questions. I think if the questions can be kept short and pointed to whoever you want to lead it to, we would like to wind it up early because we are losing strength of attendees as I can see it. So I'll now formally open it up for questions, if any. Yeah, Reggie, I can see you unmuted yourself. Rahul, I'm hoping you'll ask a question. I don't see you there. And I was seeing Mr. Arun Sen, but he's logged off as well. I'm quite sure he would have been itching to ask a question. Okay, I think, Reggie, we just need to wind this up because we are losing strength here. So with your permission, then I'm going to just basically close to say, I think it was very good that we had this fully rounded discussion. And if Anand is taking notes, I presume he is, it becomes a good white paper for ISGF to actually give it to the Forum of Regulators in India. It is not an easy task as the government has mandated, but it is not also an insurmountable task. It has to be done with certain level of coming together to get things done. And it is doable. I think I like Sanjay's approach. It's doable. But at the same time, when you have a broad spectrum of architecture, of terrain, of geography, you have to carry everybody with you. So my view would be going forward, you may have probably 2 or 3 classifications. And based on those classifications, perhaps the incentive, disincentives, the rollout timelines, etc., may be a plan A, plan B, plan C, so that it is not just one size fits all for India, because India is a very geographically diverse country with very different attributes for each of the utilities. And the notion also of shared services comes here. I would also request that somehow the risk sharing needs to be discussed. Till about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was a purchase, a procurement. Today, more and more of that is actually being shared, whether it's the telecom side, whether it's the cloud services, whether it's the backend, or whether it's AI, it's all being shared, the Watson model, as we would call it. So you pay by the drink. So that also then raises the question as to how is the IT and the IT-enabled industry willing to share the risk on the utility side, as opposed to just, this being a utility issue. There was the notion that Mr. Kelly brought about the consumer's own responsibility. And I think it is something that is worth noting. He limited it to harmonics, and in my career, I've seen harmonics being created by consumers that have gone and affected other consumers. And it takes days sometimes to go and point out, that you are the culprit of the harmonic generation. And it can take a lot of time. So the notion also is that the customer is in this together, I think is something that we need to take cognizant note of, as opposed to saying it's all the utilities' fault every time something happens.
Too late in the day.
And the last and certainly not the least is the recovery, the investment recovery. Given India's discom scenario, Sanjay, I read your article on LinkedIn 3 days ago. You bring a good point. So the question is also, is the notion of implementation of technology and how you get investment recovery through the regulators is something that I think Mr. Chatterjee brought about, is the affordability issue. So it's a tag team that you play as to what it is. There was one hint that Mr. Kere brought, and I don't know whether he's meaning it or he really wants to go that way, is differentiated services for differentiated rates. I thought you brought one small aspect, which is a unique characteristic, because normally the floor is always raised high, and the floor continues to raise high. The differentiated service is looked down upon by most utilities around the world, much like the healthcare. So in a way, it'll be interesting to see whether he brings forth a good reason why it is good to go that particular way, as opposed to, saying we should have one size fits all, which is where the cost recovery becomes an issue. That may be one. So I think those are the 4 or 5 observations I had, and I think it was a very, very good discussion that we had. Hopefully, like I said, Reggie and Anand, somebody in your group is taking notes. But you can produce a white paper, I think, from this to be sent to the Forum of Regulators. So with that, I would like to close. I think it's about almost 8:45, I think, India time, if I'm not mistaken. So I think there's several people hungry around the table and the panel here. So let me close, and I'd like to thank you all very much. And maybe next time when he does it in person in India, I hope to see you all in person. So thank you all. Good day. And good
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's it.